In Senate hearings, Senator Tommy Tuberville labeled the Social Security system as a scam. And he says, we're dead broke. He's correct on both. The Social Security system, I think of as like a Ponzi scheme. The definition of a Ponzi scheme is it requires new people coming in to pay off the old investors, so to speak. And that's exactly what's happened. I'm Ben Reppond. Welcome to my YouTube broadcast. Today is March 5th, 2024. I'm going to begin by covering this piece by Tommy Tuberville. This is done on Forbes, and in these hearings, he points out, and there's a lot of frustration, that Social Security is not helping the people it was intended to help. And they can't make it. I mean, there's just not enough money being paid out to the people who need it the most. And further, the system is slowly going broke. There is enough money today, but we don't have to look out too far into the future to see that there's not going to be enough money. And benefits will have to be cut, taxes will have to be raised, or the age for people receiving Social Security will have to be increased, or some combination of those. So he makes a very good point, and he brings in an expert, and she says basically that we have to reform the system. Now, I happen to teach Social Security at the local college, so I've studied this a lot, and I'm aware of what he's talking about. There is enough money today, but it is going to run out if we don't do something. Congress has the ability, this is in the hands of Congress, they have the ability to make changes, not radical changes, very small incremental changes, not for current beneficiaries, but for future beneficiaries, and small changes, or tax the system a little bit more. That could be done today, and it would not be drastic. I think most people would put up with it. But if the further we wait, if we wait several years or 5 or 10 years, it will have to definitely be much more drastic. And what's crazy to me is that Congress knows all about this. This is in his hands and his committee's hands, and they could do something. I think it sounds like he's trying to do something, but Congress, I don't care what they say, they just don't respond to it. And it's costing Americans, trillions of dollars have been paid into the system, and people are getting $2,000 to $3,000, maybe a little bit more, $2,000 to $3,000 in most cases, dollars per month out of the system. And it's a very broken system. Anybody that looks at it would say it's broken. So I want to play this for you and let you listen to it. And then from here, I'm going to step into debt. Same kind of thing. We're dealing with debt. But I want you to listen to this because this is, I think, a significant thing for us as a country, and it's definitely fixable. The other thing I wanted to mention was that this expert says one of the things that we could do, in addition to doing some reforms, is that we could privatize, or not privatize it, but we could allow individuals to have their own account. Instead of having a government system, you could still be run by the government, but it would be kind of like a 401k, where you're taxed. Currently, you're taxed at about 15%, a little over 15% of your wages. This is FICA, and it comes out of your paycheck. If you're self-employed, you pay the 15%. If you're employed, you pay half of that, and the employer pays half of that. He points out, I don't know, I haven't checked the math on it, but it's probably right, is that he would have about $8 million in his account if he had that money designated for him And then if it were designated for him, maybe he could pass it on to his heirs. $8 million instead of this $2,000 to $3,000 a month. If it had been, put away, properly invested over his entire lifetime until age 65 to 67 or something like that. And that's amazing. And that's exactly, but the government wants their hands on your money. And they want to keep it in that trust fund, which is now about $2.5 trillion. But they want to control it, not let you control it. So you'll hear Senator Tuberville's frustration and some pretty interesting information here. So take a listen.
This is all a scam. I mean, we got people that's getting ready to retire that's going to try to live off $2,000 to $3,000. Impossible. It's impossible. Because what happens, it comes up here, we spend it. We're $35 trillion in debt. We don't have any money. We're dead broke. And then taxpayers have $2 trillion in credit card debt. We are in huge trouble. In this body, we had better start figuring that out, because we're going to have a run on this city here soon, and there's going to be about 150 million people coming up here saying, where's our damn money that we paid in? I could have put my Social Security money for 40 years in tax in the market and probably be worth 8 to 10 million today. But the federal government wasted it. So I'll get off my horse there. But it's good that we have this, because we got, I get a little pension check from education. I was part of a union. It's not going to help people. People are going to have to continue to work longer and longer. Am I right, Ms. Gender? Can you say something about Social Security and it being taxed for some reason? We're taxing people for the second time on Social Security that they put into an account.
Yeah, and I'd like to point out when Social Security was first founded, those who established it, it was started out as a 2% tax, and they said this will never take more than 6% of your income. Today it takes 12.4%, and depending on whether you go with CBO or Social Security trustees, it needs to take between 15.8 and 17.5%. So we're talking about thousands of dollars more per year. It also was actually only originally recommended that the tax be up to $66,000, equivalent in today's dollars of earnings. But over time, it has expanded massively, and the money has been spent every year. So whereas everybody thinks this money's been set aside for me, no, for the past 13 years, every dollar that has gone out of workers' paychecks has gone immediately to pay promised benefits. And that's what happens when you have a system that enables those in charge of it to spend the money in the immediate term and leave the buck to the next generation that's coming along. And because Social Security has grown so much, it's actually to the detriment of lower income workers in particular, who have to pay such a large share of their paycheck to Social Security. They have little left to save for retirement. And then lower income and African American workers have the lowest life expectancies. So they are the most likely to get nothing back in return. 1 out of 4 African American men will die between the ages of 45 and 64 after having paid into this system for decades, tens if not hundreds of thousands of dollars, and they might get nothing back.
What's the solution?
I think we ultimately have to shift towards a universal benefit system. That's what true social insurance is. It does not make sense that we are paying the biggest benefits to the highest income earners. So gradually over time, I think we need to bend down the benefits for the middle and upper income earners, actually increase them for the lower income earners. Look at things like indexing retirement age to life expectancy, more accurate inflation index. And I think that workers need an option to have their money in something that actually earns a positive rate of return and that can't just immediately be spent by Congress.
Okay, now still dealing with this issue of debt, because part of it is Social Security, but now we're going to switch over to the U.S. national debt. Again, the same kind of thing, but from a bigger picture. So here we have, this is the U.S. debt clock. It's a larger screen, but I just took a picture of a piece of it. And you can see that in the upper left corner, the national debt is about $34.5 trillion. Right below that is the spending, the $6.4 trillion. That's how much we're spending each year. If you go up to the top line and go over to the green section, you see the first item is the revenue. We're getting tax revenue coming into the government of $4.6 trillion. Measured against the 6.4 trillion of spending, right next to that is 1.7 trillion of deficit. Now this is on an annual basis. The problem with this is it's going up faster and faster because we're adding more and more interest payments to a growing number, and the interest rates are significantly higher than they have been for a long time. So, and we're having to pay that as a government. So eventually, the system is going to break. And it's too much debt. And the 1.7 trillion of debt or deficit for the year is piling up higher and higher. So I want to play a piece now, go into this, play a piece on, it's kind of a Wall Street Journal commentary that talks about the interest. The interest is, right now, according to this Wall Street Journal commentary, 870 billion. 870 billion annually. So that's approaching $1 trillion of interest because of the two reasons I mentioned. The interest is getting higher and higher, and we're paying at higher rates. He says over a 10-year period, that is projected because of the increased amounts to be $12 trillion in interest payments. This is simply not sustainable. Now, the U.S. is not alone. I look at, I won't go through all the other countries, but we're about the 8th worst when you measure debt to economic output, called gross domestic product. So when you measure that ratio, which takes care of, larger countries and smaller countries, we are about 8th worst. So there's 7 countries worse than us. When you go below us in the rankings, it doesn't drop off. I mean, there's a long list of countries that are in bad shape. What does it take for this to break? It will break. It is not sustainable. So what is going to happen? Because it's not just a U.S. problem, it's a world problem. When you have all of these countries that are in terrible condition, can't pay their debt, they have no plan to pay $1 of principal or $1 of interest. I know the U.S. doesn't, so I'm assuming that other countries don't either. So it's kind of, I think of it like the Federal Reserve that just prints money and throws it into the system. I think of the Treasury Department as like that, or Congress, is that they just spend money, it's a deficit, the debt goes higher and higher, we have no plans to pay it back. What's the difference between that and just printing money? It seems about the same to me. No plan to pay it back. So take a listen to this piece. This will go into some detail regarding the interest and the debt.
Interest payments on the U.S. national debt are on pace to hit record levels. For 2024, the Congressional Budget Office estimates the United States will spend $870 billion, not on the debt itself, but on making interest payments on the debt. The CBO's latest projections show interest payments on the national debt over the next 10 years will total more than $12 trillion. That's the highest dollar amount in any 10-year period, and it's more than double the total spent in the past 2 decades. I'm going to explain just how much interest payments are going to cost, how much of the U.S. budget they will account for, and why the debt could start to matter to the market and to everyday Americans. Let's get into it. Over the next decade, the CBO estimates that the U.S. government's interest payments on the national debt will total $12.4 trillion. That's more than the actual national debt was as recently as 2009. The amount that the government is paying for interest has risen by more than 35% each of the past 2 years, and payments are projected to increase by 32% this year. The big increases are the product of a widening budget deficit, meaning the U.S. is consistently spending more than it's bringing in.
Okay, next I saw this chart kind of echoing the same message that the U.S. along with other countries, by the way, are entering a death spiral. In other words, the debt is going up faster and faster because of the reasons I stated. So this chart shows this. It goes back just to 2022. Okay, you can see at the bottom left, 31 trillion, and at the upper right, it's approaching 35 trillion. And look at the rate that is going up for these same reasons. We are going in debt about $1 trillion every 100 days. Think about that. Does Congress care? They don't care at all. They just spend and spend and spend, and they see a bill that they like and they spend. Maybe it's a good thing, but they don't ask the question, can we afford it? Now, here it's, I normally stay away from politics, but I'm going to jump into politics here. So I'm going to violate my rule. The Democrats have no problem with debt. They will spend, spend, spend. They're the big spenders. But if you're a Republican, before you get too smug, the Republicans do the same thing. They say they are for cutting the deficit. They act like they're fiscal hawks and conservative on spending until they get back to Washington. And then they just join with the Democrats and they spend, spend, spend. So Republicans or Democrats, it's the same. The problem with the Republicans is they're hypocrites about it, is that they act like they're conservative and holding on to the purse strings, but they don't. And you go back to the last couple of presidents on the Republican side, Trump and George W. Bush, big spenders. And of course you get to the Democrats, big spenders. In the mid-90s, Clinton was less of a big spender. And of course he had Newt Gingrich in there pushing him, but President Obama, Biden, they're all big spenders. So you can't, political parties really don't matter. The Republicans are just as bad as the Democrats and vice versa. So I don't know, we don't seem to have politicians that are really, really serious about doing something on this issue. And, but we have to do something. I mean, sooner or later, we have to get politicians that are serious. I think, if I was going back to this clip I played on Senator Tuberville, he's from Alabama. What do I have to do? Sell my place in Montana and move to Alabama so I can vote for him? How many people are there like that? I mean, I don't know of many that really are serious, and he acts like he's serious. But if we can find politicians who are serious about getting Social Security financially sound and balancing the budget, or getting close to balancing the budget, at least stop increasing the deficit, that would be a big step. So that's where I go, is I go, what can I do about it? And that's what I think. Now I'm going to jump over to another area, completely changing topics, and go into layoffs. And this is going to be my final topic. Right now, I was talking to my son, Preston, and he lives in the Bay Area, and he said, Dad, there are a lot of people here that have lost their jobs or fear losing their jobs. And a lot of them are tech workers. Of course, it's a tech-heavy area. And what's happening, and this is really interesting to me, this will be an interesting piece for you, is that this is occurring in the tech area, and traditional programming jobs or tech jobs, they are being replaced by AI jobs or AI robots. So the AI engineers are programming the AI robots who will replace even the AI engineers, in my opinion. So it's this is an issue. It's not only an issue there, but it's an issue all over our country where there are tech jobs. Now there's other jobs that where there are layoffs are starting to occur, but it is most obvious in the tech world. Take a listen to this.
Hi, Brittany.
Hi.
Thanks for meeting with me and Rosie. We have an important meeting today. We finished our evaluations of 2023 performance. This is where you have not met Cloudflare expectations for performance. We've decided to part ways with you.
Yeah, I'm gonna stop you right there.
This is a viral video posted by Brittany Peach, a former employee of Cloudflare, a San Francisco-based tech company. The video posted on January 2024 and got so much attention that it may have kicked off a new subgenre of viral video. Watch this person get laid off in real time. The tech industry is again seeing widespread layoffs after a rough 2023.
LinkedIn just laid off nearly 700 employees. Qualcomm is planning to cut more than 1,200 jobs.
Google, Amazon, and Snap are among the companies continuing to downsize.
And the start of 2024 seems no different as layoff announcements, especially in the tech industry, continue to make headlines.
Units affected, they also include hardware, engineering, ad sales. So far, last night, CEO Sundar Pichai told his workforce to expect more cuts. An Amazon spokesperson did confirm those layoffs. The head of Prime and Prime Video and MGM saying in that memo that the company is making some of the cuts to prioritize investments for the long term.
Layoffs are also plaguing industries like healthcare, banking, and media. However, the tech industry is the one that's been dominating the headlines.
This layoff and everything that's happened in tech, I think is pretty eye-opening. You know, like you can have your dream job, you can have your, oh, it's my dream to work for Microsoft, or it's my dream to work for AWS. And you get there and you realize, okay, it's just like any other job. It's a great place to be. There's a lot of great perks, but at the end of the day, they can get rid of you like that.
The layoffs to the start of 2024 signal a dramatic shift in the tech industry. We're going to continue to see layoffs happen as the future of work has changed, as the future of technology has changed, and as investors' appetite for risk and growth versus profitability has dramatically changed as well.
Now, the final piece I want to play for you, this was interesting to me. This is the CEO of Recruiter.com. He talks about that they use Salesforce as an example. Okay, they lay off 700 people, and then they add 1,000 people. These are programmers, engineers. So why lay off the 700 if you're going to turn around and hire 1,000? Because they're letting go the people who are the traditional programmers, capable, qualified, etc., to do traditional programming, and then turning around and hiring those who have the AI training and capabilities. So that seems to be what's going on in the world of technology. Companies like this will become more efficient, more profitable. Their stock prices will probably go higher because of that, but it is at the price of real jobs with real people. So take a listen to this piece.
Just under 25,000 jobs already cut this year so far. Last year was supposed to be the year of efficiency. In your mind, what's going on this year?
There are a few things going on. It's always been a very confusing job market, certainly recently. I think companies are still in the cleanup from 23. There's still some failover or some fallover from that in terms of some additional layoffs. But there's also a changing of the skills that are necessary. You look at Salesforce.com, who had a very public announcement of layoffs earlier in 23. They had an incredible second quarter earnings call. They were scaling up already in Q3. And now they announced again, we're going to do another, I think, 700 layoffs. But at the same time, they're hiring 1,000 people. So there could be a flipping of skills, different skills necessary to really handle the new world of 2024, Gen AI. AI needs to be incorporated into various different areas of companies, and you're going to see that sort of be a new trend. So we're laying off people who are less necessary, if you will, or who are we overhired still earlier in the cycle, and now we're hiring specialized skills.
So Evan, you're really hitting on something I think is the question for a lot of people. You mentioned Salesforce as an example. They're laying off some people, but they're still looking for other employees to work in their AI-focused endeavors. So do you see that being a continued trend throughout this year where there's going to be layoffs, but companies allocate that capital and maybe those jobs into other areas, more than likely AI focused.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing that we're seeing, Frank, is a return to work policy. So you're seeing in some instances these layoffs were people who just didn't want to go back to work. So if a company wants to go back to work, there's still some there's clearly economic uncertainty. We're seeing recruiters getting hired. We're seeing salespeople getting hired. These are all indications that companies are going to be looking to do something, either growing their revenue base that they lost over in 23, or of course looking to hire folks. We're also think we're going to start seeing a shift to contract labor. You know, in terms of economic uncertainty and specialized skills that are necessary, and a return to work policy that's in effect, it might be easier to find temporary contract labor to fill those specialized skills needs.
Okay, my son gave me this also. He said, this website, if you're interested in tracking where the layoffs are occurring, but what companies on what dates and how many layoffs, this website called layoffs.fyi. And this will give you, and I just took a screenshot of this. This is, I took actually 2 screenshots. One is the layoffs in 2024, the top line. The next one, I toggled it to 2023 and looked at the number of layoffs. When you go inside of that, you can see all of the companies and how many layoffs on what date. There's a lot. There's a lot. Anyway, that's interesting. If you care to drill down into it, there's a website with that information. When people get laid off, I was thinking about this. These are real people with real lives. Maybe they're single, maybe they're married, maybe they have kids, probably have a mortgage or have rent probably. And they've gone to school, they may have student loans, but they've gone to school and educated themselves in an area where they thought there was demand, high demand, and there was. And now all of a sudden, by the thousands and tens of thousands, these people are being told, we no longer need you. So if they go to look for a job somewhere else and take those skills, they're talking to another company who is also laying off their people. So what do? I don't know. I think each one is a story, and each one is an individual with a real life, and this, this is painful when people lose their jobs. So I don't know. Maybe they get retrained. They pick up some additional skills and become an AI engineer, so they can program robots that will put them out of business again or out of a job again. I don't know. It made me think of this piece I did some time ago with Mike Rowe. And Mike Rowe talked about we have lost touch with the emphasis on labor jobs, on skilled labor, and that we eliminated shop class from high school. And the opportunity to have body shop and woodworking and welding and jobs like this, and these were looked down upon for the last 4 decades, and now these are well-paying 6-figure jobs in many cases, and an opportunity for people to make good money, and probably, I'm thinking, probably not deal with this kind of layoff situation that people are dealing with. Not everybody's cut out for that, I understand, but the fact that we've just kind of taken that out of the schools and de-emphasized that in our culture, I think is probably to our own peril. Okay, well, thank you for watching. If you have questions or comments, leave them in the comment section below.